thank you all so much for joining us today. It's an exciting webinar that we're trying to look at how and what you might want to do as a trustee of an organisation. We at the Green Alliance are currently recruiting for 3 trustees and are looking for those people who are passionate, who are excited about the environment and who want to see real change. Just to give you a little context about the Green Alliance, we are one of the leading environmental think tanks. We work cross-party with a very strong focus on evidence-based research, which turns into policy actions that we then advocate for. We are really ambitious about building a sort of consensus around environmental action and combating climate change. Our main focus is climate, nature, energy, transport, also resources and adaptation. And we run some fabulous task forces that really dive deep into subject areas. We're very keen to recruit from a very diverse group of trustees. We have fabulous trustees already, some of whom you'll meet very shortly. But we're looking particularly, as I say, for passionate people, talented people who are committed to our cause, but also bring a wide range of expertise. Now, whether that's diversity in terms of socioeconomic backgrounds, people of colour, young and yes, old, and with people with disabilities too. So we're looking to, in many ways, enhance what we have as a great core team of trustees. We're very, very keen also to express that at this moment, we could not be at a more important time when it comes to addressing our nature and climate crises. And so for us, this is a passionate moment, a moment that we really need to see change. Our organisation has grown rapidly over the last couple of years. And now we need to really ensure that we're getting policy change and messages across with a particular focus on Westminster, but actually a very important approach around regional governments, our other nations within the United Kingdom to actually see change. Today, we have got 2 of our existing trustees, but also one of our senior policy advisors, Lucy Pegg, who will be opening by talking about her experience. She's been a fabulous trustee of an organisation. And we thought it would be really useful to have her perspective from somebody who has worked within a small organisation, but one that has had real impact. So I'm absolutely thrilled to introduce Lucy, who's going to cover some of her experiences as a trustee. Thank you.
Hi, yeah, thanks for the introduction, Laura. I'm Lucy. I'm a political advisor at Green Alliance, so I work in our politics team, trying to make sure that the policy work we do has real political impact, working on all sorts of things, but particularly on our natural environment work. But today I'm not really here to talk about that. I'm here to talk about the experiences I've had being a trustee, particularly as someone who's probably quite a bit younger than the average trustee of an organisation. So I was a trustee of somewhere quite different to Green Alliance. So rather than being a think tank, a sort of a national organisation, I was a trustee of a family centre in Oxford. So this was an organisation that provided really grassroots services to the local community and families, often people who were struggling, whether that's because they were struggling with low incomes, because they might be new to the country, because they were migrants, or any other reason that they might be having difficulties. So it was an organisation that did things like offering free hot meals, offering support to help families read with their children, or just kind of providing a safe space that people could be outside of their home, a warm space. So all of those services that have become really important and often quite difficult to access over the last few years. So it was an organisation facing all sorts of challenges, trying to have, obviously funding is always difficult for small organisations like that, but also the increasingly challenging situation for the people who are using their services. And again, that's a very different organisation to Green Alliance, but hopefully I can provide some useful insights on what being a trustee was like regardless. So I actually got involved with that because I'd been really involved with the local community in various ways, and so was asked to be involved for that purpose, not really because I had any specific expertise on sort of family work or social work or anything like that. So I think it's probably, you can come to being a trustee from lots of different perspectives, and sometimes that might be that you have really good policy insight, or like insight into the specific area that that an organisation is working on, or it might be that you've got sort of slightly expertise or insight that sits slightly to the side, but which is like really relevant and can really support the organisation in a different way. So as well as talking about my own experiences, I've been asked to talk about what being a trustee actually involves more generally. So there's some sort of formal responsibilities, and then I'll also talk about what I felt like being a trustee actually meant in practice. So the formal responsibilities of being a trustee, I'm not sure if this is the bit that we have on a slide perhaps, but yeah, I think there is a slide. Thanks, Siri. Yes, so this is what the Charity Commission says are the formal responsibilities. So it's ensuring that your charity is carrying out its responsibilities for the public benefit, ensuring that you're complying with charities' governing documents and the law. So, organisations are doing lots of stuff day to day, but there's also lots of sort of formal documents about what their purpose is, what rules and regulations they need to follow, and trustees have to sort of have an eye on that kind of stuff. You have to always act in your charity's best interests, and make sure that you're managing charity's resources responsibly, whether that's an organisation that's got a very small amount of resource or a very big amount. Trying to make sure that that is being used well and appropriately. Trustees always need to act with reasonable care and skill and ensure your charity is accountable. And there's lots more of that sort of formal information about what being a trustee involves from the Charity Commission. So yeah, if anyone's interested in that side of it, I definitely encourage having a look at their website. There's lots of useful information about that sort of side of things. But I think that's all really important stuff. But day to day, I think often being a trustee, that might not be what's absolutely at the forefront of your mind. For me, it was being part of what it really felt like I was doing was being part of a group of people who sort of had a step back from the organisation, but were really trying to make sure that everything was happening in its best interests of those people working for the organisation and the people it was serving. So we could perhaps see the bigger picture slightly. We weren't working there every single day. We weren't thinking about all of this, the sort of smaller things that you get caught up in when it's the place that you work. We could also provide a bit of continuity when staff changed as well, and a bit of oversight from that perspective. And sort of from that being a little bit stepping back, we could maybe like ask questions about how things were working. We could challenge things if we didn't quite understand why something was being done in a certain way, but also provide support to the people who were doing that really important day-to-day on the ground work. And to me, I felt like that was the kind of role. It's a bit of an oversight role, a kind of like a critical eye, but also like a really supportive body for those people doing the day-to-day stuff. And I felt that like as a younger person, I would say most of the other people on the trustee board that I was on were probably retired. A lot of them hadn't been working for quite a few years. They'd been involved with the organisation for decades, some of them. And so I felt like what I could do valuably was perhaps not, know the service as well as them, know the people who were part of the organisation as well as them, but I could offer a bit of a different perspective. And so some of the things that I was able to help with, I think, was about fundraising. Small organisations, that's a massive problem, always something they're having to think about, and fundraising has probably changed quite a lot in recent years. And so there was some stuff just trying to encourage them to talk to local businesses or think about what you could do on social media, which is perhaps the classic thing that young people come to organizations and can try and provide some insight on. I was able to link the organisation with other people that I'd worked with on different stuff. So I could link them up with a sort of forest school project and say like, oh, would try and share resources, share expertise there. And another thing that I found really really powerful to be doing was trying to ensure that staff voices were represented on the board. Again, I think being someone who was currently working, there was a slightly different perspective perhaps when salaries were proposed for things or when staff had feedback about the way that should be used, and what people should be expecting day to day. Just trying to ensure that staff voices are really integrated, and that whilst the board was separate and its role is to be separate, that it was really there to support those people who had quite difficult jobs that they were having to do. So yeah, that's everything that I had to say, I think, on my experiences. I think going back to Laura now.
Thanks, Lucy. That is really fascinating. And your experiences, I'm sure, have informed people about what more than just those statutory requirements are. I'm really thrilled that Dhara has joined us, one of our newer trustees, and she is Deputy Director of Energy UK. So Dhara, over to you.
Thanks so much, Laura, and thanks to the team at Green Alliance for putting this on. It's fantastic to see how many people have signed up to this. So I'm just so heartened by the fact that so many people are interested in thinking about volunteering as a trustee. I've been asked to share a little bit of my insight in sort of what my experience has been since I've been with Green Alliance. So a little bit about me first. I joined the Green Alliance board in summer 2022. My background in terms of my work has always been in the public and charity sectors, and I've been working on all things energy, mainly focusing on sort of consumer policy and net zero since 2009. And I joined Energy UK in November 21, and I am Deputy CEO here. So I've been working for the Trade Association since the kind of energy crisis really started to kick off. So I'm very happy to talk about that separately if anyone is interested in that experience. But personally, I think public service takes many forms. Civil society, engaging with the world via the voluntary sector has always mattered to me. Whether that's working on issues that I care about or to benefit communities that I am part of. So I've had lots of various roles. I've volunteered in food banks. I have been a school governor. I've done lots of different things. In my way, that's kind of how I've always sort of given back and stayed connected to the issues that I care about. I think getting involved as a charity trustee is a really good way to put professional skills to use. Like so much of the world that I work in, it is being a trustee, no matter which kind of sector you're in, it is dominated by people who are motivated by the right things, but are demographically from quite a small pool. So often kind of older, white, retired, often male, not always, but often. So that there's an EDI angle to it, I think is worth exploring. It's also not something that people from kind of socioeconomically, it's often something that I think is considered to be quite a middle class thing to do. So I think we should talk about that a bit as well. Happy to take questions on that as well. I think you get lots of insight. You get lots of insight on what's involved in the management of charities, and you get to gain skills on working well within this sort of leadership roles. There's an opportunity to use the skills you've got and the experience you've got for a cause you care about, but also you get a chance to learn, and you learn an awful lot through being part of a board. I've definitely grown my network through being involved in Green Alliance, and it's been totally joyful. One of the things that motivated me to join Green Alliance was the fact that I realised that I didn't know so much about lots of parts of the net zero jigsaw puzzle. Whilst I think I'm pretty good on the energy side, I really wanted to learn more about nature, and I knew that this working with Green Alliance would mean I'd be more exposed to some of that. And I wanted to be part of the solution. I want to fight for a cause that I can give purpose to and direction to. And that's how I thought being a trustee of Green Alliance would be a good opportunity to do that. It has definitely been that and more for me. I've really enjoyed the last year and a half or so that I've been on the board. I think that we're doing some really interesting things as a charity and as a think tank. I think that the change of government and the impending election is going to be really crucial for our agenda. And I think that we've got lots and lots more that we can and will achieve. So it's a great organisation to be part of. We're very fortunate to be able to tap into the brains and the expertise. The management team and the team doing the work on the ground they're a fantastic bunch, and I feel very proud to be associated with Green Alliance.
Thank you so much, Dhara, and it's just wonderful having you part of the board, so thank you. David Baldock is really one of the European and UK, but definitely pan-European leaders in the environmental sector, and is a leading person at the Institute for European Environmental Policy. And David, you've been on the board for quite a while, but I just wonder what your motivations have been, and how you felt being on a board has in many ways said what Dhara's been talking about is in some ways expanded oneself as well. And thank you, David.
Thanks very much, Laura, and thanks Green Alliance for putting on this whole event. It's a first for me, and I think a first for quite a lot of organizations. We don't do this often enough, and reaching out to get trustees or people even thinking about being trustees is important, because it can be a bit of a limited closed loop, or people not thinking that it's something for them at all. And we really need to change that. And there's definitely a sense in the Green Alliance we want to do that. As Laura said, I've worked a lot of my life on European policy in the EU, because so much of our environment policy in the UK comes from the EU. And I got involved in the Green Alliance, I think partly because I'd had a bit of a track record in the environment community, and it was a place where I could possibly contribute something, and especially around the time of Brexit, when we were setting up a lot of new legislation, a lot of new governance, new approaches in the UK. And so we had to adjust to that. And so, as Dhara said, I had a chance to sort of bring some of my experience and skills into an organization which really knew how to use them, which was thinking on its feet, was innovating, was influencing policy, and was having serious debates and asking real questions about what we should do now. And Green Alliance, I'm a trustee of a few organizations and not actually retired, although I'm the sort of suspect age group, definitely. And I can say that the Green Alliance is a very open organization. You learn a tremendous amount as a trustee, both from the staff, and you have the opportunity to get engaged in the work, and I do that, and most trustees are involved in specific things that happen, and in the whole organization development, and in the politics. We have brilliant political discussions amongst the trustees, thinking about, where is the environment going? How does it fit into the future of the UK? And it's an organization with extremely stimulating people sitting around a table and being able to think about the organization's strategy, thinking about the finance and the funding, as Lucy said, thinking about the people, and people are completely central to all organizations. It's really about the people and what their aspirations are and how they can best work together. And then when they leave, how we can replace them. And one of my jobs as a trustee was to be on the committee to replace the director when the last director left. And so that can be quite a significant type of responsibility. And as Dhara and others have said, there's an important role in terms of both building skills, communicating, and making sure you know where the heart and soul of the organization is going. And as a trustee, you have that opportunity, if you choose to take it, to really engage with that and perhaps help to get the pulse moving the direction that you think's important. And I want to stress that it's absolutely true that trustees tend to be older people, but that can and really needs to change, as Lucy said. And as it happens, I accidentally became a trustee of Friends of the Earth when I was in my late 20s. And it was quite a terrifying experience to start with a lot of things going on at once. But then I kind of settled into it and became, much more comfortable finding a role where I actually could put something in as well as learning enormous amounts from other people. And we definitely would like to have more younger people early in their careers bringing different perspectives. And for all us who are trustees, we all bring something slightly different, and we're reasonably good at trying to make sure we listen to what other people are doing and making that space so that those perspectives come home and as relevant as they can be. But I think we all share a sense of pride that the organization delivers so much and stays so sharply on the ball. So if you do end up getting involved, I think you'd enjoy it tremendously and be quite stretched by it.
Thank you so much, David. So sort of bringing back Dhara and Lucy with David, it was really just to have, there are quite a lot of exciting questions that are coming through, and I thought we might go straight to the questions being put by people who have joined us. One of the things that I think is important to understand and for us to articulate is really the sort of the time commitment, but also I mean, in all three of you have mentioned it, the things that one does beyond just the commitments, which are the charity commission's commitments. And I think that's where people feel that they can get really engaged. But I mean, maybe Dhara and David first, just on what do you see the time commitments and how do you feel that we use that time effectively?
I'll have a bash, David, if that's all right. So there's the commitment in terms of going to the meetings. They're every couple of months, and they're an evening, and it's fairly straightforward. But I think that there's something beyond that, which is about making sure you read the papers and are ready to contribute. And the reason I say that is because I'm also on the other side of it, right? I'm a deputy CEO of an organisation with a board. We do the papers for our board. The quality of conversation is far better if you're able to just spend a bit of time reading the papers. Very good at Green Alliance, they're very short papers and they're very pithy and easy to read. So I think it is about making sure you're able to properly engage. I've definitely been involved in boards because I've been a trustee of other organisations where you can tell where people haven't read the papers and you can tell where people are perhaps not necessarily as motivated to engage in the conversation, and you get out from it what you put into it. That's the kind of best advice I'd give on being a trustee. There are opportunities to do more. You get invited to lots of events. Green Alliance put on fantastic events. I'm lucky enough to be involved from a work perspective as well as from a trustee perspective, but those are far more optional. But the kind of minimum requirement I don't think is too stringent, but it is about making sure you are committed to doing it.
David, maybe I could ask you another question, and that is about what do we see the challenges and risks for the organisation going forward in your role as a trustee? and of course, very much the opportunities.
Yes, well, I think the opportunities are to play a significant role in devising and putting into practice new approaches, partly policies and legislation, which we do a lot of work on, but also new thinking, thinking about the development of really new approaches in the private sector, thinking about developments in the media, and Green Alliance really engages right across the piece, influencing the conversation in social media as well. And as we come out of an election period with a new government, whatever flavor we end up with, we're certainly expecting an era with potential change, with the potential new opportunities. We've got some major targets to reach. We have some pretty strong headwinds to deal with. We know there's not a lot of public money around to throw at some of the problems, so we're going to have to be innovative and creative about that. So it's a particularly exciting moment, really. It's a bit of a reset, and we're running out of time to solve the climate crisis, as people know. So there's a sense of real urgency there, and the organisation feels that.
Lucy, you were really interesting in terms of getting involved in an organisation that you didn't have absolute direct experience, but there is a question about from one of the attendees saying how important is expertise in green issues, but also as opposed to other areas such as board experience, finance, HR, because I think that you found that you got yourself involved in quite a lot of other issues, not just the central purpose of the organization.
Yeah, I guess it depends, it all depends on the organization and like who else is on the board already. So I think where I was involved, there were loads of people who knew lots about kind of like, yeah, providing support for families and that kind of thing. And so it was fine that there were a few people on the board who didn't have as much background there. And yeah, so we could provide other things, other insights around perhaps how they could get involved in the wider community, and how they could, there were funding that we might have been aware of and how they could access that kind of thing. But I know that organization was also looking for more trustees who had specific knowledge on like managing organizations and finance and stuff, because that was like they'd identified that as an area where the board was a bit lacking in skills. So yeah, I think it probably varies from organization to organization, and in some cases maybe having like a background in the policy area is really important, but if the rest of the board is really strong on that, perhaps it's not as necessary.
There are a lot of questions coming through about timing, etc., and just sort of picking up on Dhara's response to that. One of the other things that we do at Green Alliance is our meetings are in the late afternoon, and that has been very much designed around people who have full-time jobs, etc., which a lot of us do, but it's to ensure that we're being as inclusive as possible when it comes to people who've got other commitments. So that's something that we feel strongly about. There are lots of questions also around the sorts of skills that we're looking for and the sorts of networks that we're keen to attract. I don't know whether David and Dhara want to add to this, but some of the thoughts that we've had early on in this is, as I go back to the dimension of diversity is really important. And I think David picked up on this, that the environmental movement can be seen to be a little bit traditional in terms of its profile. And so we're looking to really challenge that. I do also feel, but again, others might have other views, is that regional voices are really, really important, and particularly with our metro mayors, with our regional, in some ways, administrations, and with our nations too. So I think that we can become very London-centric as well. So I don't know whether Dhara and David, you wanted to add to that. And maybe Lucy would like to give us a bit of a prod to say what she would think would be useful. David.
Well, I think Lucy rightly said that boards need a balance of different skills, and not everybody needs to know about everything. And it's sometimes amazingly useful to have somebody coming as a trustee who knows an awful lot about one specific area, which may not be, something, directly relevant to kind of environmental strategy, climate policy, etc., but actually provides them with a really granular insight into, how the world works, how people think, how change progresses, and they've got really a tremendous amount to bring. So we're not doctrinaire and thinking, yes, you've got to have, degrees and PhDs and, in-depth knowledge of environmental issues across the board. That's not essential. You certainly need some people who have that. And you absolutely have to have some people who know about finance. There's no question about that. Or all boards need to think about that to some degree. But I think we're pretty open to people also who bring a sharply outside perspective. So it isn't too cozy inside a kind of environmental world where a lot of people know each other quite well, who are actually going to be a bit challenging and bring something, from outside London, from outside, some of them, the normal suspect type group. So, and people on the board have talked about this and feel quite committed about that. I don't know, Dhara, I'm sure you could add to that.
Yeah, thanks, David. I think you're absolutely spot on. Yeah, it's a really interesting one. It's a commitment, right? And I don't think we should underplay the commitment. It is a commitment, and it's one that you should do well if you're going to do it, because you're ultimately responsible for setting the strategy and signing it off as a non-exec director. The main thing I'd say is that the management team know what they're doing, right? We've got a great senior leadership team, so we're not running the day-to-day operation of Green Alliance. What we are doing is helping to set that strategic direction, steering, advising, and really helping to govern and directing how it's managed, run, and the strategy, but we're not doing it. And that I think that's the distinction. And I think it's about balance, because the reality is actually you need, the experience is also great. So we want to retain experience whilst also giving other people the opportunity to have their voice heard too.
Lucy, do you have any hints for us?
Yeah, I suppose in terms of having different voices, it's all around having the people who are already on the board being willing to listen and being welcoming, and not assuming things that there's no reason that people should know, and being as open as possible to new ideas and perspectives. And I think especially whoever's chairing, or like people who are long-standing members of the board and who are perhaps quite influential voices, like them in particular, being receptive to new people who might be bringing in different perspectives, even if they're asking questions that haven't been asked before or suggesting new ways of doing things. I think it's mainly just about openness, and I think some of the really practical stuff is important as well. Which Laura already talked about like making sure that meetings are at a time which work for people, or that if someone says actually that time doesn't work for me because I've got like a caring responsibility or this thing, like being willing to change things, or maybe let someone join online or whatever it is that makes something accessible to them. So I think it's that combination of the atmosphere and personalities of people being open, and then being willing to make some practical stuff that makes stuff accessible as well.
And I think also it's important, we're going to put a lot of effort into our induction process, ensuring that we're really bringing people on board, that they actually understand some of the background before being sort of immersed in the first meeting, and to get to know the team. And I think that one of the wonderful things, really spectacular things, is the quality of the team. As Dhara says, the senior leadership is fantastic, but there are just so many amazing experts in all parts of Green Alliance. And I think, as we've all said, I learn something every time I engage with Green Alliance, every time I go into the office. And I think that is very much so you are learning, but we are also learning from you. So that's really important. I just wanted to add some of the other areas that we have talked about, and that includes things like people with strong business contacts, people with strong understanding of how decision making is made in the civil service, also understanding some of what one might call sort of having been involved in politics, what public sentiment is, how is it working, where are we moving to? I always think that every organisation should have a behavioural scientist on it as well, just to ensure that we understand. We also, you know, might be interested in people who've got a media background too. So there's a very, very wide range. I also wouldn't want us to forget what David said about finance. It's a very interesting thing for charities and organisations to try and find those great people who really can help and support the organisation through finance and audit. This is absolutely crucial. There is a question here, which is, what do we have in terms of subcommittees? Just to explain that. So we have a main board meeting, but before that, we have a finance and management committee, which is chaired by our finance director. And he is absolutely crucial to the organisation as trustee. And we look at management issues, we look at the finances, and we look at fundraising. And while this might sound like a sort of the tacky end of the inspirational conversation that we've had with the other trustees, yes, fundraising is important. And so we always have to be very cognizant of how we're ensuring, as Lucy rightly said, the Charity Commission requirement that we have all the right resources. So we're sort of coming to the end of this webinar, but I'm just going through some of these questions. We're very, very happy to take more questions from you by email. That's no problem at all. I wanted to just give everybody one sort of line of why you should apply for Green Alliance or for other organisations. And then I'll give a little bit more of an update about how to apply and what the information you need, etc., would be useful from our point of view. So can I start with Lucy? Why should people become a trustee of Green Alliance?
I think, yeah, I mean, I work for Green Alliance, so slightly biased. We do really, you know, we try and do really great work, and I think we manage to have real political impact with the thinking that we do, and so this is quite an exciting moment politically, and you know, quite an exciting and scary moment in terms of the climate and nature crisis. So yeah, I think it would be a good moment to get involved with Green Alliance, and you know, at that time when this is becoming quite a challenging topic to work on, we really do need like the best people and the most diverse voices, so we can reach as many people as possible with what we're doing.
Fabulous. David?
I would very much echo that. And the other thing I'd like to say is I think you'd find it a welcoming organisation, and you've had a bit of a sense, and Laura is really a sensitive, open chair, does listen to different voices, is aware of the issues that I think we've talked about today in a really nice way. And so I think that the direction of the board will be a good one in the next few years, and you'd find it a place where you'd be appreciated and your voice will be heard. Not without commitment, as Dhara says. It's not zero work. You have to put yourself on the line a bit.
Thank you, David. Dhara?
Thanks, Laura. Yeah, I'd absolutely echo what David said. And Laura is a fantastic chair, and Sean is a great CEO steering the organisation together. We've got a great leadership team there. What I would also say is that being a trustee anywhere is an amazing opportunity to give back, whether that's to a place-based community or a community working on something that you're interested in and passionate in. Specifically about Green Alliance, what I'd say is the quality of not just the conversation around the board table, but more importantly, the work that Green Alliance does is high. They punch above their weights, and to feel a part of that in a very small way is something that makes you feel really proud. So I think if you want an opportunity to feel a part of something that's super impactful, then consider applying for Green Alliance, Trustee.
Thank you, Dhara. And so just to sort of recap, firstly, we hope that this has been useful for you, whether you apply for Green Alliance or look at other opportunities, because this is about ensuring that we, as a whole environmental movement, get the best people coming forward, and that maybe you've got a little bit more of an insight into how we work as a board together, how we work with the organisation, and how it sort of hand in hand the trustees complement and support what the organisation is doing. Just a few things, therefore, on how to apply. We have in the chat the application forms, and what we've got is a sort of pack which will give you a little insight into what we're looking for, how you apply. We're looking for a short CV, but to be frank, what's really important is your covering letter, the passion that you can show, how you personally feel that you would like to input into Green Alliance, and what you feel you would like to get from it as well. Because as I think both, all three of our trustees here were saying that they get a lot from the experience, learn a lot, and expand their horizons. So there is a lot of give and take across the board. What we'd like to do is to just sort of, in many ways, shape a board together with the other trustees. So it's not that if you're not successful, it is not that you aren't absolutely brilliant. It's we've got a lot of people on the board, and it's about building a jigsaw and creating the right mixture. But we really welcome all applications. As we say, we're really looking for a lot of diversity, a lot of different opinions, and a lot of different perspectives. But I would urge you to invest time in your covering letter, because I think that's what's going to show and reveal who you are, what you might be able to contribute to us, and how much we will be able to support you in coming forward. But please remember, we are looking for very wide range, different types and different expertise, different age, different backgrounds, and really urge you to apply. And very much, I have to say, and thanks to the team at Green Alliance, it is amazing to have so many people on this call. And I hope whatever happens going forward, that you found this useful, informative, and do please reach out if you have any other questions. But it's been a great pleasure, and thank you, Dhara, David, and Lucy, for all your inputs, and I've learned a lot as well today, so thank you.